Howard Stern Show.
Judd Apatow's new book, Sick in the Head, is available at Amazon.com and bookstores everywhere. And what it is basically he went out and interviewed all of these comedians, and a lot of them he interviewed before they got really big. And I think these interviews are really interesting because you're such a fan of comedy and you want to figure out what makes comedians tick. And the rest of us seem to be interested in this. I think people really are interested, not so much in the comedian, but I think we're all interested in a success story. We're all interested in the rise or the climb. Like, how did Jerry Seinfeld become so good? How did Chris Rock become so good? What were they like before they got famous? What did they do in order to become successes? I think we're all interested in that.
Well, that's the one thing that I love about what you've been doing recently. I mean, recently might be the last 15 years, but
recently, for my life.
But the long interviews. I mean, these are my version of like when you had Seinfeld on last year and you did an hour or an hour and a half with him. It was one of the great interviews. You asked him everything that we've always wanted to know, and that's what the book is.
And that's what you've been doing your life. So this, I just found these clips kind of interesting. I'll share them with the audience. Here's Judd. He's much younger. He's talking to Chris Rock. When was this from?
This wasn't. This is a more recent one. This is just from last year.
Okay. Here you are talking to Chris Rock, and a lot of this stuff ended up in the book. And you're talking about Jerry Seinfeld, because Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld are very close.
Jerry Seinfeld, one of the greatest comedians of all time, and one of the cockiest bastards to ever live. He's cocky like a black wide receiver.
It seems like if you're neurotic in any way, in a normal way, he looks at you like you're insane for not getting it.
He does, but I mean, to his credit, he writes some of the best jokes ever. They're like Billy Joel songs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of hip guys in the world. Like, who the fuck can really follow Billy Joel in America? I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't give a fuck if you're Sting or Bono. If you're on stage in America, there's a party that just hopes Billy Joel doesn't walk in.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a very gracious statement, because a lot of comedians are dicks.
Yeah.
They don't want to compliment other comedians.
Sure.
But he admires Jerry Seinfeld. But meanwhile, you even say Chris Rock is probably the greatest stand-up comic alive today, right?
Well, it feels like when you see Rock do a long set, I don't know when he's going to do a big tour again, but I've seen him do really long sets.
Well, based on his divorce, I think it's going to be soon.
He'll be out soon.
I think we'll be seeing him on the road a lot. Yeah.
I thought that, he accomplishes in his first 10 minutes what most people get done in their hour in terms of how many ideas and how funny it is. But I'm always fascinated by Seinfeld because he's one of the first comedians I really fell in love with. But also, he's so confident in his worldview. He is comfortable in his own skin in some way.
Don't you think that's the secret to great comedians, that you got to be so opinionated? I find them to be overly sensitive, and there's no sort of wishy-washy. They're very secure in what their feelings are on any given topic.
Yeah,
right?
And that's why I stopped when I used to do it, because I thought, I'm not angry enough. I don't even have positions on anything.
Right.
I don't even care about anything. I mean, now I'm older, so things have happened that I can talk about, so stand-up is fun. Right. But back then, I'm like, I'm not mad. I mean, when I was doing stand-up originally, Kinison was the guy.
Right. Yeah.
And so, when I'm in a club and then Kinison's on, I just think, I should stop being a comedian.
Right. It's like it can actually defeat you to see somebody great at their craft. When I sometimes would look at Kinison and go, oh my God, this guy's light years ahead of anyone. How does anybody ever go into stand-up comedy when there's Kinison?
Yeah.
I think about him every day. One of the most brilliant comic minds.
And
everything.
I used to see him when the crowd didn't know who he was.
Right.
And that was a whole different thing.
Right.
We did a comic relief benefit in '86, and no one really knew who Kinison was yet. Maybe he had been on HBO a little bit. But at this charity event, he comes on and does the greatest hits of Kinison. The men lose their minds. Every woman in that room walks out. I've never seen like a walkout situation where 125 women walk out the door and the guys are like, well, I'm staying.
Right.
And then he tears the roof off the place.
And it didn't matter to him that he was polarizing. He just did his thing. Had a bit hard for you to see. It was for me to see a great comedy mind like that. And I knew Sam pretty well. To see him destroy himself the way he did, because I saw him go out many nights when he was drunk, and it really killed me. I go, oh, to have those kind of gifts and and to just abuse yourself. The abuse is crazy, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, especially when it's in slow motion. When somebody is struggling, and everyone knows he's struggling, and everyone's trying to help, and you realize, at some point, people have to figure out how to do it. But I think he was sober at the end of his life.
At the end,
Yeah, he was.
Which is really the tragedy of it, which is he really got it together.
Yeah.
But what's weird about comedy now, I don't know if you think this is the case, there really aren't any wild men anymore.
No.
There's no insane people in comedy. Everyone's really good, and I think comedians are probably better for the most part. But where are the lunatics?
Maybe the comedians are better at covering their insanity, but insanity should be embraced. Like Andy Kaufman seemed insane.
Yes.
I don't know if he was or wasn't, but he seemed insane. Kinison seemed insane. Dice seemed insane.
Yeah.
Bob Goldthwait seemed crazy.
Yeah.
Even I remember the first time I saw Howie Mandel on the Merv Griffin show, I thought he was mentally ill.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great with the crazy guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's it's sort of everyone wants to be now the snarky Harvard type guy. I guess.
And the one thing about Kinison was I saw him one night just come on and do all new material. He just riffing off the top of his head,
Yeah, he had a
and
great
it was
mind.
great.
The Howard Stern Show.